What's up, everyone? Jared Sandler here with our spring training update for Wednesday, March 17th. The game is not until tonight. You can listen to the game on 105.3 The Fan and the Texas Rangers radio network. First pitch just past 8 o'clock in the Metroplex. For those of you here in Arizona, first pitch just past 6 o'clock, Rangers and the Diamondbacks. So there are obviously going to be things that materialize throughout the day and tonight of the game. We'll kind of address those tomorrow, or if there's something that requires an immediate conversation, we'll have another episode later today. We'll get a chance to speak with Chris Woodward later today, and of course, like I said, the game. So some things can transpire, updates and stuff, and if the need arises, we will bring something to you immediately. But I wanted to, instead of wait until closer to first pitch, and certainly not after the game, wanted to bring you some updates from last night's game and just some general talking points. So first of all, things that stood out from last night's game: the Rangers beat the Giants, by the way, in a 3.5-hour thriller that included a comeback from down 5-1 thanks to a big, I think it was a 7-run inning highlighted by a Nick Solak grand slam. But as you know, all that means little in the grand scheme of things. It's some of the process stuff that stands out. And I guess first on the offensive side, the reason the Rangers were in a position to score double-digit runs, the reason they had that big inning, the reason why Nick Solak had the grand slam and had another opportunity prior in the night with the bases loaded, is because they were just littering the bases with base runners the first few innings. And that's not because of a dink and a dunk here and a broken bat infield single there. It's because they were working the count. Johnny Cueto threw more than 80 pitches and retired 7 batters. That's more than 10 pitches per out. That is a very winning formula. Now, what does this one game mean? I don't know. But watching the game, and if you had a chance to watch it, you noticed this too. The Rangers were very disciplined at the plate. And as we talked about the other day, 2-strike hitting and plate discipline are getting reinforced and preached more than ever. And it's not that the Rangers didn't recognize this was important in years past, but they've got young, wide-eyed guys making up their lineup and their roster for the most part, and they have hit the reset button. And when you hit the reset button, it allows you to kind of re-engage some of the things that are most important to you. When you've got a bunch of veterans who kind of are who they are at this point, it's tough to change certain things. You have some wiggle room. It's not that you can't change, but now when you got guys in the lineup who don't have the skins on the wall, outside of maybe a Joey Gallo, from like a longevity standpoint, and even Joey, it's not like he's had 3-4 straight years of being an all-star. It allows you to do these sorts of things. And the plate discipline here, Matt Hicks and I have noticed over the last week, and that's significant because now we're outside of that introductory week where everyone's just going through layup lines, so to speak. The plate discipline has been a lot better. Will that translate into the season? Who knows? I can't predict the future, but I'll tell you that we are seeing some quality at bats, and we certainly saw some quality at bats last night. One guy who stood out, David Dahl, had 3 hits, and we're starting to see him get into some kind of a rhythm. And one of the things that has really stood out to me about David Dahl is his balance. And I'm not talking about his ability to balance plates on his nose while riding a unicycle, but just his general presence in the box. It allows him to hit velocity, but it allows him to look velocity and hit off speed. He doesn't seem to get out on his front foot. He doesn't seem to be, all over the place in the box. It's a very calm presence in the box. And listen, there's some guys who have unbalanced presences in the box, and they have success. But, these are guys who you can get, you can get to chase, you get them to swing and miss, get weak contact. And not that David Dahl isn't going to swing and miss. He does. Not that he's not going to have weak contact. He will. But he just seems to have a strong, solid foundation from a balance standpoint that allows him to be prepared for high velocity and low velocity, because obviously when it counts, you can't tell the pitcher what to throw you. On the mound yesterday, I thought, Taylor Hearn was fine. He had a little 2-batter stretch where the command wasn't there, and ended up giving up a home run, Evan Longoria. It seems like that's something he has to work through. 5-6 inning stretch, there's going to be a period of time within that, whether it's a batter, 2 batters, 3 batters, where he's just trying to refine his control. And you obviously want him to grow from that, the good thing is that it doesn't seem like it just lingers the whole start or, even for an entire inning. One thing he talked about is that sometimes his arm trails the body, and that prevents him from being in sync from a command standpoint. He's been working on speeding up the arm to be in sync with the body. All right. One of the things we talked about yesterday, and for those who didn't get a chance to hear us discuss it, the stolen bases. This is something that has been a big part of the Chris Woodward Rangers. Really, it's been a big part of the Rangers for the last decade. Stolen bases, aggression on the bases. I asked Woody yesterday, is this going to be a big part of your offense? And he basically said, listen, the situation is going to dictate that. And I think that means two things. One, I think it means, the point of the game. Obviously, if Joey Gallo's up as the tie and run and you've got Leody Taveras at first in the eighth inning, you're not going to be inclined to run with Leody and have him risk getting off the bases when Joey's the tie and run. There are situations where running makes sense, situations where running doesn't make sense. I think the other part of this is, what does the Rangers lineup tell you need to do to score runs? Last year they needed to be active and wreak havoc on the bases because they were not a great hitting team. They weren't even a good hitting team. And so when that's the case, you got to be creative. As a manager, in some ways you're helpless. You can't, it's not like basketball where you can try and find different rotations or call different plays, and football, but you also don't want to just sit there like palms up, like, well, I can't help it. This team's hitting 220. Like, what am I supposed to do? One way that you can try and create and manufacture offenses on the bases, whether it's base stealing or just being really aggressive. And while I don't know that necessarily means the Rangers are going to lead the league in stolen bases again, I do expect this team to be very aggressive on the bases. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Jose Trevino stealing bases. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Nate Lowe or Ronald Guzman stealing bases. I think Nick Solak is a guy who could steal double-digit bags. I think Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Rougned Odor, guys who could steal double-digit bags. Leody Taveras is a guy who could steal 20-plus bags, maybe 30-plus bags if he gets on base enough. Joey Gallo is not a guy they want stealing a lot just for the sake of his body, but he's a really good base runner and is someone that is going to be able to impact them in that way. And David Dahl, same thing, really good base runner, someone who could steal bags for you. So the Rangers don't have maybe the one guy who could lead the league in stolen bases. Leody Taveras, maybe. I don't expect that he'll get on base enough to be that guy, but he could swipe a lot of bags. But the Rangers do have a number of guys who can run on you and are good base runners. So that's going to be something worth monitoring. How much is the base running and the stolen bases specifically going to be a part of this team's identity? On the mound, man, I might have said this. If I didn't say this already, I apologize. Matt Bush pitched another scoreless inning. If you would have told me 3 months ago Matt Bush was going to be on the opening day roster, I would have been like, man, you're insane. You're buying into like the great story. But the guy who's missed the last 2 years, he looks great. He is not allowed to run all camp. And it's not just that he isn't allowed to run. He's looked really sharp when he's been on the mound. And at this point, I think it would be a big surprise if Matt Bush was not on the opening day roster so long as he was healthy. One of the things worth noting, just a procedural thing, if a player were to start the season on the injured list, it is not known yet whether they would be allowed to stay in minor league camp on a quote-unquote rehab assignment. Would they have to be at the alternate campsite? And then regardless of what they are allowed to do, what would make the most sense strategically to get those guys ready? I asked Chris Young about that in respects to Willie Calhoun. If Willie were to start the season on the IL, how would they proceed? And he said that teams are still working with Major League Baseball to determine some of those specifics out. And they hope to have some resolution on that here in the coming days. So figured I'd share that. And that's going to do it for our update here today. Again, if anything pops up that requires some extra conversation, I'll be sure to crank one out and share some thoughts. Otherwise, we'll talk to you later. Remember, Rangers and Diamondbacks 105 through the Fan, Texas Rangers Radio Network. First pitch just past 8 o'clock in the central time zone of the DFW Metroplex. Take care.